Hello and welcome to the February New Mexico water supply briefing. I'm Royce Fontenot. I'm the Senior Service Hydrologist here at the National Weather Service in Albuquerque. So let's head right on in. Droughts continuing to expand over New Mexico and southern Colorado as these dry conditions persist. Snowpack values remain well below normal. La Niña persists in the Pacific Ocean, and seasonal runoff forecasts are remaining low across all of New Mexico. Let's look at current conditions on the U.S. Drought Monitor. This was issued Thursday, February 8th. Conditions shown here through February 6th. That's Tuesday. Look at the national view and more the regional view. You can see all of the basins affecting New Mexico, even going up into the headwaters in Colorado, are in that D2 category, severe drought. This should be terribly no surprise to anyone here in New Mexico or southern Colorado. It's just been extraordinarily dry conditions. Taking a look at the conditions to our west and our east, you can see that D3, that extreme drought, starting to grow over the Texas Panhandle, Oklahoma, into Kansas, as well over into our neighbors to the west in Arizona. And a little bit of that D3 is bled into New Mexico. Taking a look at the right graphic, you can see the New Mexico Focused Drought Monitor. Overwhelmingly, most of the state, about 80%, is in that D2 through D4 drought, with just a little bit there in Catron County in that D3 drought. And that's bled over from conditions, and that's kind of a long-term condition there. But the key point here with regards to water supply is all of our basins are well below normal and in that drought. Looking at the 30-day precipitation on normal, this is from our river forecast centers. This is a combination of radar and gauge data. You can see the dry trend continues. Now, one thing I would like to point out on this graphic is some key points about the analysis. This is a percent of normal precipitation. This time period of the year typically is the driest when you're looking at just actual numbers. We're typically low values. So even a little bit of precipitation, particularly in some of those areas that normally don't see a lot, can push you near normal or above normal. And that's a lot of what you're seeing when you're starting to see precipitation values closer to that 50%. There's a few pixels in their areas that show right near normal, a little bit above. That's somewhat of a statistical artifact. The long-term trend is still extraordinarily dry. And you could see that in the next 60 and the 90-day graphic coming up here. And here's the 60-day. A lot of areas still have no precipitation. We have several reporting stations out there with well over 100 days now of no recorded precipitation. 90 days, similar trend, particularly over east of the Central Mountain Chain. Also looking at the upper Rio Grande Valley, going into the San Luis Valley in Colorado, you can see those well below normal, less than 5% of normal precipitation in those areas. So it's not just the mountains that are being impacted up in the headwater areas, also the low-level valleys. Speaking of snowpack, let's go ahead and look at this. This is the graphics from our partners at the National Resource Conservation Service, the NRCS. They're part of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. They're the agency that actually runs a lot of the automated snow reporting stations in the higher elevations and the ones who do the manual snow courses every month. So let's take a look at the right graphic. This is the Colorado data. This is snow water equivalent. If we melt down the entire snowpack, how much equivalent of liquid precipitation would we have? Upper Rio Grande right now is at about 34% of normal, that value. Same thing over in the San Miguel, Dolores, Animas, and San Juan Basin, about 36. So these are the headwaters for those rivers. So you can see already we're starting with very low numbers in the snow water equivalent. And some of those stations, again, are reporting near record or record low values. Taking a look at the New Mexico conditions, even bleaker. We've got several basins, the Pecos and the Rio Hondo, for example, that are statistically at the very bottom of what they should have for this time of year, 2 to 3%, which means really just a little, basically a trace of precipitation on all those stations of snow on the ground. Same thing over in the Zuni Blue Water. The best basin is the Rio Chama Basin. There was a system in January that was very good to that area, had was southwest flow and really was what we call upslope and helped to bring some snow into that area. But the overall numbers from where they should be right now, first part of February, are pretty low. And one thing I want to remind folks that typically on the New Mexico basins, those southern basins, we're peaking out pretty soon here. Usually the first part of March, first week or so of March is the peak for these values. In Colorado, it's further north, higher elevation. It tends to be the first week of April or so. So we really don't have much time left to accumulate significant snow to help bring these numbers up. This is the 28-day average stream flow from the U.S. Geological Survey. And you can see, again, this trend has been somewhat the same if you've been following along. We're seeing those unregulated basins, particularly in the southwest, the Gila, the San Francisco. You're seeing on the Zuni Blue Water. Those are continuing well below normal. Starting to see those below normal basins expand, particularly over the Four Corners region and parts of the Eastern Plains there in the Clovis Portales area. And then starting to see up in that northeast corner up in Union County. Now, a lot of this is that we had that really great September-October precipitation. We're finally drawing that moisture out of this upper layers of the soil. So we will, if conditions don't improve, we will see this trend continue to go down. Natural basins are doing pretty well elsewhere. Regulated basins are doing well. In a lot of those areas, we're still riding high from the 2017 water year. So let's get into the outlooks. Here's the Pecos River outlook. This is a seasonal total, March through July. As expected, with worsening drought conditions, the forecast is diminishing. And I think I want to focus everyone's attention to those brown bars. That's the probable percent of average, basically what's the most likely of the outcomes we're expecting and where does that fall. Those numbers are not that great overall, seeing a decline in the expected numbers. Pecos, near Pecos, only about 26% of normal. Pecos near Anton Chico, about 11% of normal. The Galenas is about 18%. And inflow to Santa Rosa is expected only to be about 11% of normal. I want to reemphasize through all these graphics, these are natural flow. So we're taking out, when we do this forecast, all the dams, all the reservoirs. If the river was running normally with no human intervention, what would it look like? So let's head up to the Canadian River. Numbers are not looking well there either. Basically, if you want to sum up the Canadian, the conscious inflow is about 11%. Again, it's fed up with snow coming from the Eagle Nest area, those eastern side of the Sangres. The numbers just really are not there snowpack-wise. Shifting to the Rio Grande, looking at Del Norte, this is a little bit different. All the rest of these are March through July. Del Norte, again, further north, is in April through September. Del Norte is looking at about 50% normal from what they have there as their probable flow, but that diminishes as you go further south. The Rio Grande at Ottawa Bridge is about 21% normal. Over in the Chama Basin, inflow to El Vado is only expected to be about 24%. And I want to bring up the Rio Grande at San Marcial. So this is where numbers get a little interesting. So this is a statistical algorithm. So it's looking at natural flow, no dam. This is what the model is simply saying here. Statistically, we could be seeing a situation purely on natural flow where there may be no flow south of the Albuquerque metro area in natural conditions. So we may not have a continuous river. Now, that being said, I want to reemphasize that is purely natural flow. That does not take into account the management decisions by the water agencies along the Rio Grande. So keep that in mind. This is a model assuming natural flow, no human regulation. So what we actually see south of Albuquerque on the Rio Grande is going to be dependent on multiple things, the Rio Grande Compact, those water rights and operations. So if you're a water user south of the Albuquerque metro area, please start talking to your irrigation district, those are various water managers, to see what their plan is. Again, this is just a forecast for natural flow. There's a lot of other things that could happen here. Looking over the San Juan Basin, near Pagosa Springs, about 47% of normal flow. About San Juan River in the Navajo, about 35% of natural flow is expected, and in Farmington, about 34%. Heading to the southwest, the outlook there, holding about the same, looking about 26 to 32% normal on the San Francisco. Now, this is a February through May. Typically, the San Francisco peaks out earlier than the other rivers. Again, it's the farthest south of our basins. So, again, not looking at really great runoff conditions on any of our rivers. So let's talk about La Niña. La Niña is what's driving the current drought and current conditions. Those conditions persist. Review La Niña is where we're seeing cooler than normal conditions in the equatorial Pacific. Particularly, we're looking at that Niña 3.4 region right there. So what we want to see to call a La Nina is a longer term, usually a 3-month temperature departure of minus half a degree Celsius. So looking at that 3.4 region on the graph, you can see we're staying below that minus 0.5. Currently, the numbers for a 3-month average, that's November, December, January, is solid at minus 1.0, which is right at the edge between a weak and moderate La Nina. Weekly values in that 3.4, the most current value is minus 0.9. So there is some fluctuation. There are some signs that La Nina may be weakening, and another phenomenon called the Madden-Julian oscillation may here in the short term actually cause a little bit of a pattern change. But you can see typically in that top right graphic, this is what we expect in La Nina over the southwest. Drier conditions, warmer conditions, and that is exactly what we have been seeing. So here's the current 8 to 14 day outlook. This is valid as of the afternoon of February 8th. So remember, if you're interested in this outlook, these are updated every day. Please check current conditions at some of the links I have further down. But what we're seeing again is a trend for above normal temperatures over the southwest, with a slice of near normal over the eastern extreme northeast New Mexico. But more interesting is that shift in precipitation the next 8 to 14 days. Early part of February here, mid-February, we look to be entering a little bit more active of a pattern. So Climate Prediction Center is showing near normal precipitation for parts of the Rio Grande headwaters and some of our normal basins, and potential for above normal precipitation for southern New Mexico. Now, current values, it's hard to tell this far out, 8 to 14 days. We're not likely to see a drought buster, but at this point, any improvement is welcome. Looking at through the March through May outlook, so going into our runoff season, this was issued mid-January. We'll be seeing an update here probably next week. That, again, above normal temperatures, below normal precip, that is very much driven by the La Nina forecast, so that's likely to continue. Looking at the drought outlook, which was issued at the same time, no real change there, looking at drought persisting and possibly expanding over the remainder of New Mexico. So in summary, drought conditions are continuing to expand over New Mexico and southern Colorado. Snowpack values remain well below normal. La Nina conditions are persisting in the Pacific Ocean, and seasonal runoff forecasts are remaining low. I'm going to pause on this slide. These are some excellent links. The current U.S. Drought Monitor is there at the top. That comes out weekly on Thursday morning. Plus, there's a lot of great resources there if you're interested in drought impacts, and mitigation. These are the NWS offices that help in the water supply. Of course, Weather Service Albuquerque at the top. And those are the 3 river forecast centers that produce, in conjunction with the NRCS, the water supply forecast for New Mexico. Our partners at the U.S. Geological Survey, their Streamflow conditions are there. The New Mexico Climate Center at New Mexico State University has a large amount of links and information on current climate and weather data for New Mexico. Our partners at the Western Regional Climate Center at the Desert Research Institute in Reno, Nevada. There's a link to the NRCS water supply forecast, and finally the NRCS snow data. Again, none of this would be possible without the NRCS. They are a key partner for us in this water supply forecast. And that concludes the briefing. There's my contact information with any comments, questions, or feedback. We should be seeing some mid-month updates, and I will be posting a new water supply update briefing toward the end of February. Thank you.